One, I think, fundamental responsibility of every citizen is to go and vote. But of course, that has, there are several issues involved with that. One is, how do I get myself onto the electoral roll in the first place? And that has a series of problems around it. Secondly, even if I get myself on the electoral roll, is my name going to be there when I actually go to the booth to actually want to, cast my vote?
We all think that especially slum dwellers, their names are on the electoral roll and that they are used as vote banks. But actually, as per a survey that Civic did, we found that 33% of people in a slum did not have their names on the electoral roll, and of those who had their names on the electoral roll, about 45% did not have the voter ID card. So we looked at the Representation of People's Act and we found that there's a whole lot of procedures which the electoral registration officer has to follow in order to ensure that every eligible voter is on the voter roll. First of all, we all give our form 6, 7, 8 and we are supposed to get an acknowledgement on the spot. We found that many of the slum dwellers had not even got the acknowledgement. And we also found that once they receive our form, they should register it manually in a register, and without a docket number or a serial number given to the form, there's no way we can track that form. And once a form is received and a docket number is given, the electoral registration officer has to record her or his decision on the form saying, I have accepted this or I have not accepted it, and intimate the person or the applicant about the decision taken. Now, supposing there is a doubt about an elector, that whether he is genuine or not, and if he does not have a proper age proof or address proof, the problem really happens there. And in all such cases where there is no proper documentation attached, the electoral registration officer has to send a notice to that person saying we are coming for a site visit, or a booth level officer is coming for a site visit and you have to be present on such and such a day. And if he is ordinarily resident there for last 6 months, there is no reason why his name should not be included in the electoral roll. In case the site visit cannot be done, the electoral registration officer has to send a notice to the person saying you have to come for a hearing at my office, and an oath should be administered to that person saying whatever I'm saying is true, I am resident here ordinarily for the past 6 months, and that oath or affirmation is enough to enroll that person. But the voters need to be aware of this procedure.
The other problem is, what is the information I have about the candidates? Who are they? What kind of politics do they subscribe to? What do they believe in? What are they actually going to do for me? And how can I actually trust that candidate to deliver after he or she is elected?
In majority of the cases, people don't find time to understand that even the electoral, the People's Representative Act, the format when you contest election is very clear. That it is few people who get together and then propose a candidate's name. So I think this has to be more clear, an activity of civil society groups also, in telling people that you can have a candidate from among yourself. And because this is not very clear in our syllabuses, whether in school or colleges, but the very fact that we only know that government is for the people, by the people, and all this only remains a slogan.
Some of us find it very strange that a lot of groups today are talking so much about corruption and asking for a clean candidate. A clean candidate, of course we want clean candidates, but that is the basic minimum requirement of any political system. It's not only we want clean candidates, we want clean citizens. We want clean government. And even in the time when we had a feudal system in India, when we had kings, we expected the kings to be just. We expected them to be honest. We expected them to be clean. And if they weren't, you removed them. But in a democracy, you expect a lot more.
Ideally, choice of candidate should be made by the voters. But in our system, it is made by the political parties. Actually, not even by the political parties, by a few selected people in the political parties. So when the choice of candidates is made in a non-democratic, non-transparent manner, then We can see the result of that. We have to balance between what we think is an ideal candidate and what the masses of voters think is an ideal candidate. But there are some universally accepted norms that we should stick to. So one is, of course, if a person has a serious criminal case against him or her, that could be murder, that could be a non-bearable warrant, that could be financial fraud, that could be harassment or outraging the modesty of women or some gender-related problem. All these kind of serious crimes, I think under universally held principles accepted everywhere, such people should not be allowed to stand for elections. Also, those who are bribing voters or trying to get votes based on arousing the baser passions of people based on caste, religion, or some other identity, which is actually banned again under the Indian Constitution. But people continue to appeal to narrow identities during elections. Such candidates should be disqualified from elections. We started our work on transparency of assets, hoping that once things are in the public domain, correction will start taking place. But we find to our surprise two things. One is that when the assets are exposed, the first step is that the authorities, either the police or the income tax, should be taking action to investigate. For example, we found in Karnataka that the assets of a minister or as a group of all the ministers grew by 664%. Now, if an ordinary citizen's assets grow by 664% in 5 years, it is guaranteed that he or she will be under income tax scrutiny because the software throws up such names. But then the same thing should apply to candidates and elected representatives. In fact, we should demand higher standards from them. But no investigation takes place.
The other issue, the third issue involved in this, in the whole electoral process, is how transparent is it? To what extent do I have a choice?
You see, corruption in election is very blatant that we see throughout the country. And I think as voters, we need to understand the very clear examples of how corruption is embedded in this issue. Whenever people, even in general democracy that you see, it is actually representation of people. A majority of people have one people to select for them to be represented in, whether it's in the local council or the parliament or the assembly. But majority of times you will see that somebody from outside, whether it's from party or an individual, majority of the time it is from somebody outside who comes and imposes himself on a certain section of the people, saying that I am a candidate, I want to contest and then you vote for me. So whenever a candidate is investing money on people to buy, whether it's liquor, whether it's sarees or whether any other work that is being done, at a later point of time, it is like he investing. So he has to get a reimbursement of all that money. He retrieves that money by not doing any developmental work, whether it's roads, whether it's dams or otherwise. He first thinks that he has to make that money back, and that is why you will see a lot of corrupt practice that is happening and non-performance of duties of the MLA or the council, those things happen.
The process of selection of candidates should be open and transparent. Unless that is done, so we can either go for a German system where candidates are selected by secret ballot by the political parties, or we can go for the American system where there is a first round nomination process where anybody can stand in a constituency from any party. So if there are 10 candidates standing from the same party, there is a first round nomination, and then the people of that constituency say so and so is our candidate, and then the other 9 have to drop out, and then he becomes official candidate. Right now we have the high command system, and people in a spirit of cynicism say that pehle mera desh gulam, ab mera desh nilam. Means first we were slaves and now we are being auctioned off. Our nation is being auctioned off because in many political parties apparently they auction seats to the highest bidder. So people go and say, I will give 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs to the party kitty, I will manage my own election, and somebody says I will give 45 lakhs, they say, oh, he should get the ticket. So this is Mera Desh Nilam, my nation is being auctioned. So this system is clearly not going to work. That's why we have to move to a more democratic system of selecting candidates.
I think these are clauses which are there, which are unused. And I think civil society and individuals need to keep talking about these rejection of candidates and then rejection and marking that I am not accepting any of these candidates. But it will take some more years. But then we should still keep talking and then galvanizing civil society, people into this whole process where you can use these two. One is to say rejection of candidates, and second is to also recall the elected representative once he or she is not performing to the real aspirations of the people.
One thing is this, that I think, to provide an option that I have, and it's already there, I don't know the section, but it's there in the Representation of People's Act, that none of the above candidates meet my standards. That option is there, and people have to actively exercise that. And it is a message, clear message to the system that people are disgruntled. And what else can I say? I mean, I try to do a lot of things to change the system, and it doesn't work. The one thing I can surely do when you really listen is to say none of you meet my standards. And that option has to be advertised as part of my citizen right. That it is not just voting for or against, but also voting against all. That has to be there. And I think we have to move towards a kind of deliberate democracy in which we don't elect and forget the leader, but hold him accountable or her accountable every now and then. Quarterly maybe, on projects maybe, and there may be a process by which we can initiate referendums. Those institutional mechanisms are there. We just have to use them, right? Through the Panchayat Raj process, through the Nagarpalika process, through ward committee functioning, all these need to be taken seriously. If you take them less seriously than if you don't take them seriously at all, that seems to be the thing. Then once in 5 years you say you complain and go and participate in this great festival. It's like going to a wedding, right? It doesn't make a marriage.
And all these issues are really quite complex. And because the system doesn't really work, even casting my vote, which is a basic right and also a basic responsibility, has become such a difficult task.